My name is Scott MacLennan. I'm from Albuquerque, New Mexico in the United States of America, but I also live half of the time here in Budonilcanta, where we are today in the studio. I say I probably got interested in photography about 40 years ago. I mean, I grew up in a home where we had cameras. My parents had cameras, and they would take photographs of us like on our family vacation. But I didn't really have any interest at that point in time in being the person using the camera, in being the photographer. I think it was later on, either one of two things happened. Either it was because I knew a friend who had a DSLR camera, and that friend showed me that camera one day, and I was very interested. But I think the moment for me that I really got interested in photography was I had this friend, his name was Wayne Dozier, and Wayne owned several restaurants around Boulder, Colorado. But he was also an avid photographer. He loved photography, and in particular he loved large format photography, doing landscape work, you know, kind of like Ansel Adams sort of things. And he had this big 8x10 field camera, they call it, as well as a 4x5 field camera. In fact, he had a couple 4x5s. So I began carrying his camera gear for him, and we would, on the weekends, we would go walking on some trail somewhere, looking for an opportunity for a landscape photo, and I would carry all the cameras in a backpack, and then Wayne would set up and take some photographs, and in the process of doing that, he began to teach me how to shoot with one of these cameras. And I just thought the whole process was fascinating. And at the same time, Wayne was teaching me about photography. And then later on, he let me use one of his 4x5 cameras. I wasn't as much into the landscape photography. I enjoyed shooting buildings, architecture. And in Boulder, Colorado, on the University of Colorado campus, there's a number of really attractive buildings. And I used to take the 4x5 camera on the weekends and go over to campus and take photographs of these buildings. So I guess, you know, from the time I was in about my mid-20s to early 30s, 32, 33, something like that, I did a lot of photography with Wayne, and I did a lot of photography on my own with the 35mm film camera. It was a Pentax ME Super. I remember the model, Pentax ME Super. And then, you know, you got busy with your career, having children, things like that, and photography kind of fell by the wayside. In 2005, I organized a trek here in Nepal, and I decided for that trek I would go out and buy myself one of these new DSLR cameras and get some photographs. And we went trekking up to Kathmandu, and then we went over on the Tamang Heritage Trail, and all along the way I took pictures of the scenery. I took pictures especially of the people. I really loved taking pictures of the people and their colorful costumes and their ways of living and things like that. And I came back and I put those pictures on the internet along with an advertisement that said, in 2007, I'll organize a medical group to go trekking here in this area, and we're going to give medical help to people. And the response was fantastic. I think at that time, I was like brand new to this thing called Facebook, right? And so I put these photographs on Facebook, and I said, hey, who wants to go trekking and give medical assistance to people in these rural villages out in this district of Nepal? And the response, as I said, was overwhelming. I got 15 people signed up. When we did that trek, I took more photos and posted the photos on the internet of the volunteers who'd come to give medical assistance, and repeated that. I did the same thing. I put them on social media, I put them on the website. I said, okay, we're going to do another one next year, and here's pictures from the one we did this year. And again, the response was overwhelming. I sold the trip out, you know, in just no time at all. And so the idea came to my head that this photography stuff was a really, really good way to attract people to the work I was doing with my nonprofit organization, or NGO as it's sometimes called, which is called the Mountain Fund. And so I began taking a lot more photographs, especially here in Nepal. We did a trip, a medical trip to Peru. I took a lot of photographs in Peru, and I found that people really responded to those. People really got interested in these countries and in the people of these countries because of the photographs. And from that point forward, I was kind of like addicted. I went photo crazy. I bought a couple more cameras and some more lenses, and all I wanted to do was spend my time going around Nepal or going around Peru and taking pictures of the people and of the scenery and of the historic places, temples here in Nepal, sharing them on my website. And I found that people really enjoyed those photographs, and I got lots of good positive feedback, and it caused a lot of people to want to visit, you know, to say, hey, I want to go there and see that for myself. And that's kind of, you know, how I evolved into being a really active photographer, and, you know, going out all the time and shooting. How I got interested in food photography is really, it was an accident, actually. I was looking around YouTube for some videos on the subject of photography, because I have a website called Her Farm Films, and I use Her Farm Films to help train people in photography over the internet. And so I was just looking around for ideas. Who's got some good videos out there that are instructional that I might be able to share with my students? And I ran across this one YouTube channel, and it's called We Eat Together. And the guy who is the photographer, his name is Skylar Burt. He's just a brilliant food photographer. And half the time when I was watching the videos of him taking food photography, I was fascinated with the technique of food photography. And the other half the time I'd have to pause the video and go to the kitchen to get something to eat, because his talking about food made me so hungry. I'll never forget my first time actually doing food photography. I went to a restaurant here in Kathmandu. It's called Marco Polo Restaurant. Very good restaurant, by the way. I highly recommend it. I love their pizza. And I went there to shoot photos of a couple of different dishes of food they had. And one was a pizza and one was a pasta dish. And I had never done this before. This is going to be my first time ever doing food photography. So we set up on a table there at Marco Polo Restaurant, and we brought out a pizza, and we did a little bit of food styling, not that much, because I'm not a food stylist. I don't know very much about styling food, but you know, we gave it our best shot with what we had on hand in the kitchen. And I took a photograph of some pizza, and I took a photograph of some pasta. I attempted to do a photograph of one of these very complex Nepali dishes. I don't remember what they're called, but they come out on brass plates, and then there's brass bowls filled with other things, and there's like 10 or 12 different items. And I didn't do too good on that one. I learned later how to do it properly and how to do it well, but the first time around, the photograph wasn't very good. But the pasta one turned out good, and the pizza one turned out good. And so I was very happy with that. And then later, I had these friends who have a restaurant called Hadi Biryani. And you know, they obviously sell biryani, but they have a lot of other dishes. It's really good food. I've eaten there a bunch of times. They decided they wanted to get all new photographs of their food for their website and for advertising purposes. I don't know yet, because I haven't actually looked at my camera card, how many photographs we took over the course of 2 days. I'd guess somewhere 50, 60 minimum photographs that we took of all these different kinds of food that they made there at the restaurant. And as a result, I've decided I really like food photography. There's some things about it that are unique, but as a photographer, there's some technical parts to it that are really fun to work with. So on the technical side of food photography, you know, your main goal is to make the food look as natural and as fresh and attractive as possible. And you want the lighting to appear to be like it's daylight streaming through a window, and the food is on the table in front of you and you're about to sit down and eat it. Food is great because it just sits there on the table and waits. And you get to take your time, you get to set your exposures however you want, and you don't have to worry, you know, is this person feeling anxious because it's taking me so long to get this shot? The food doesn't care how long you take. And thank you for having me here today. It's been delightful, been lovely, wonderful to be on your show. Thanks so much. I hope to see you again some other time.